Show up now. I hope whatever you did last night, it was really fun. I literally missed the boat for the first time in my life. I did not make the boat. So I ended up drinking a glass of wine with Ann Mack on the dock. And we saw a couple of dolphins, but not as many as you guys did, apparently. So anyway, I think we had a great day yesterday. I hope today is just as good. I'm sure it will be. But anyway, I wanted to introduce our morning keynote, Jennifer Winberg from Momentum Worldwide. She's the global social strategist and joined the company recently and has also worked at Click3X and Lunchbox, which was recently bought by JWT. And she is going to address kind of an interesting issue, the meta audience. And if you're wondering what the meta audience is, and I'm probably going to like just trample all over your words now. Are you ready for this? Is basically, you know, that obviously you want to reach your followers, your fans with, you know, compelling content, and then there's the meta audience, the people that they know. And this, you know, her talk is really about, you know, how you can cross, you know, that divide, so to speak, and why you should. You might think, well, they're not my target audience, so why should I care? But I think there's a compelling argument for why you should care. So with that, Jennifer, come on up and please give her a round of applause. Get her started. Thanks.
Let's see here. Well, lots of wires. All right. Hi, everyone. How are you guys doing? Waking up, getting some breakfast, some coffee, some Starbucks. Is it up there? Got a clicker? All right, great. Well, you guys, I'm Jennifer Winberg. I'm with Momentum Worldwide. I'm in the New York headquarters. And my Twitter handle is Jennifer Winberg. It's pretty easy, so tweet at me. Maybe I can answer some questions towards the end. We're going to keep this really casual, really open. You know, I want to have an open dialogue with you guys because this is not, you know, set in stone. This is very sort of philosophical, the information we're going to go over. So, you know, ask questions, provide thoughts, insights. So let's kind of make this an open forum. So, start here. You guys remember this? How we used to share, right? Telling secrets, talking to our friends, whispering, you know, talking across the room, writing notes. This is the way that we used to share. And we used to have, what, 10, 15 friends, 3 intimate friends, 1 best friend. So this is the way that we used to be. This is the way we are now, right? The idea is that the way that we share is so completely different than the way that it used to be. Pictures, or it didn't happen, right? If you went to a concert and saw Bon Jovi, you could tell me that, but I'm not going to believe it unless there's a Facebook photo, right? It could also be said for, you know, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. If there are no pictures, it didn't happen, right? So it's pretty clear to you guys, and it's clear to everyone, that there's really been a lot of change over the past couple of years, even the past decade. And really from this change, a new consumer has emerged, a completely new consumer. So we're going to look at that consumer today, and we're calling them the connected protagonist. So what does that mean? What does it mean? What is the connected protagonist? All right, I know that that can seem kind of intense, but really, the connected protagonist, it's not an age thing. It's not a demographic thing. It's really anybody that has embraced technology. Anybody. That doesn't mean that it's a 23-year-old. It could be a 65-year-old. It doesn't matter how much money you make or where you live. Anybody can embrace technology anywhere. Therefore, they are modern. That makes them modern. The connected piece. Connected individuals are always on. I'm looking at all of you guys right now. Y'all are all on. Every single one of y'all. Laptops, tablets, phones, whatever you've got. You guys are all on. You're connected. Technology is a sixth sense. You guys don't even, I don't even realize I'm doing. I get yelled at all the time. I don't even realize I'm doing this. I don't, you know. It's a bad thing. I mean, in New York, people are actually considering, you know, making laws so that people can't text and walk because they will get hit by a cab. So, you know, Yeah. I mean, it's happening. I mean, I've done it. I've run into polls. It's happened. So it's as much a sense as it is smell or sight or hearing. And this is really, they're constantly connected, and it's their way that they interact with the world. They don't know any other way. And we're especially seeing with these modern consumers that are coming up that they're actually more comfortable on technology than they are speaking to people face to face. You know, they have the fear of actually speaking to an individual one-to-one. Coming up and speaking to a room of audiences, they feel much better with their platform, whether it be Facebook or a blog, right? They feel more comfortable with that because there's that sort of the veil of technology that you know, we spoke to a little bit yesterday. Protagonist. So this piece is a little bit more maybe, you know, sort of gray. But the idea is that we all see ourselves as the star of our own story. You guys all have your theme song, right? Your one song that you listen to when you're walking down the street or that's playing in your head when you're having an awesome day. We are the leading man or woman in our own epic narrative, right? If we could have that guy one day, you know, doing the voiceover, that would be awesome. So we're basically the main protagonists in this unfolding drama that is our lives. And for us in the room, you know, maybe it's not as dramatic, but for some of these teenagers online, this is their life and everything matters. So we're the storytellers. We narrate our own story. And this is not new. We've been doing this for years. My grandfather was a fabulous storyteller. Oh, back in the day, right? This is the same behavior. We're just doing it in a different way. And that's with technology has changed that. I tweet, therefore I am. So this internal dialogue is one that we share with the world. It's no longer private. It's no longer something that we talk to with 5 to 10 of our friends or our family members or our peers. The story now has a stage and an audience, and that audience is huge compared to past years. So our story is really important to us. You know, how we're seen, how we're defined, understood by the world, that's extremely important to us. And just as somebody is sensitive about their brand, we're sensitive about our image and who we are and how we're represented. So, you know, our story has grown in importance to our relationship with the audience has also changed and how that's developed. Our relationship with audiences, our friends, our peers, has changed. I like this bottom one here. It says, I like you, and it's really small. I don't think you guys can see this. I like you and what you stand for, and I'm happy for people to know it. That's the brand like that you want. That's the true like that you want. So this is pretty interesting. The idea is that these connected protagonists, these modern individuals, they're very strategic in the way in which they share their story with the world. They share specific things that they do. There are oversharers. We all know those guys are out there. But we pick and choose what it is that we want to put out there. You know, we're editing our own narrative. The things that they consume, create, the content of their lives with various audiences to create slightly different versions of themselves on different channels and platforms. Who I am on LinkedIn is completely different from who I am on Facebook to who I am on Instagram, on Pinterest. It's this idea of connected storytelling. I'm the same person, I'm just slightly different on each of these different platforms. And I share a different piece of my story. Okay, so then we get to the piece of the meta audience, the audience's audience. So the idea is that while people have always been the hero of their own stories, we've all been, you know, sharing our own narrative. We've never had the technology to be able to reach such a large audience. So any business, whether it's entertainment, branding, marketing, technology, you're not only connected with your audience, but with the audience's audience. Because they are now influencers in themselves. They become advocates very quickly. They, you know, can say, oh, I shopped here, got a great shirt, bam, advocate. It happens very quickly. And so the idea is that you want to leverage that. You want to be able to encourage that. And to allow them to share with their audiences and have something to say. So we use this model a lot when we work with our clients because the idea is that if Circle One is you as a person or as a brand, and I have my fans or followers or the people that listen to me or engage with me, And that's that second circle, that's the audience. It's kind of the easy part, right? It's kind of simplistic. It's not, engaging them is one thing, but getting the message out to them is kind of easier. Getting that third circle and beyond, that's the hard part. Having something so compelling to say, so interesting to say, that I then want to share it with my friends and talk about it because I'm basically identifying myself with it, that's the hard part. So it's how do you get beyond that third and fourth circle and make something expand and expand and expand? How do you make it go viral? Now, I'm not saying that there's a solution for that, but what I am saying, a set formula for that. But what I am saying is that you should be thinking about it, and you should have a strategy for it. So what's different is that the way that we used to advertise brands or market brands was you want brand X because it's the best. It's the coolest. It'll make you awesome. So this world used to be a world of I've got the car, I've got the house, I've got the money, I've got the job, I've got all these things, these material things that make me who I am. I've got brand X, I've got brand Y. But that's not the case anymore. There are a lot of college students that are, coming out of university, and something like 80% of them sometimes are taking jobs that they don't necessarily want, but just because they have to pay the bills. So people are looking for new ways to define themselves. Entrepreneurs is basically this whole wave that's coming out of it. The new college grad comes out working hard and knowing that they have to build for themselves and that they know that things aren't going to get handed to them, that they have to develop themselves. So they have this entrepreneur mindset. And that's really about your cultural impact on the world. So it's no longer, I have this car, I have this house, I have this money, I have these things. It's what my impact on the world is. It's what I do, it's where I go, it's who I know. And these are the things that I'm sharing with on my social sites. And I'm telling my story. So it's not, I have X car. It's, I drove X car to the beach, watched the sunset with my lovely boyfriend. It was fantastic. That's where we are today. This content defines them, and it's completely unique content. And that's the focus. Is not the same message over and over again. It's being able to have unique content that I can share as an individual, that I can put my own personal story to. This is pretty cool. This is what I like to call the money shot, right? Like when I'm tracking programs that I've done for my clients and we have quotes that's like, oh, that was so rad, thanks, brand X. This is the money shot. This is what you want. There's no exact formula for it, but this is the thing that you want to get eventually. This is the stuff that you go, oh, okay, we're making change. This is pretty cool. Brand X gave me Y to make me look cool with my friends. This is what you want. So then the question is, do you have a meta audience strategy? So there's 3 questions that we're going to ask ourselves to develop one. So what drives your meta audience? What drives these guys? What gets their attention? These are the things that you should be thinking about when you're instigating these campaigns, or you're thinking about a campaign or reaching out to these people. Are you providing them value? So is it giving me something? Do I feel like I got something out of it? Whether it be something tangible or something mental, it made me laugh and made me smile. Is it going to get my attention? Is it going to break through the barrier? We talk about consumers putting the blinders on. They're turning their eyes off of advertising. They ignore it. The pop-up block on a website, click. I mean, these generations of individuals that are coming up, they're learning more and more to sort of filter out marketing, right? They're ignoring it. It's also has to be really simple. You can't overcomplicate it. Get them to do one thing and one thing only. Because that's going to be a lot easier for the consumer to handle than to say, oh, do this, then go here, then do this, then like this, and da-da-da. I'm already overwhelmed. Right? Get them to do one simple thing. Make it really simple and start there. And then once you have them as a fan or as a follower, then you can start to provide them more and more information. But the idea is that if I have something and I want to share it with my friends, I need it to be simple so that the message can amplify and go across channels. Can I share it with my mom? Can I share it with my mom? My mom's my audience, right? Just because you think you're targeting to my demographic, the reality of it is I talk to my mom a lot. We talk about stuff. We give advice. Oh, I like this. Yeah, this thing was great. Cool. Oh, this food was good. TV shows. I talked to my mom about TV shows. So don't think that just because you're trying to target one audience, that their audience that's listening to them, that's following them, might not be, they may be completely different. So can it cross multiple audiences? Is it simple enough for each of these audiences to get? Can it go, from a 16-year-old to a 45-year-old? Can it sort of transfer that way? I know we were talking about the Oreo case study where the lights went out at the Super Bowl and Oreo released the image that says you can still dunk in the dark. Everyone gets that. It's that simple. So appeal to me as a human. Appeal to me with things like sex, love, and rock and roll, as I like to say. Appeal to me with real human things. Don't appeal to me as a wallet. I'm not Cash Money, okay? So find something that's going to make me interested as a human being. Okay. The next piece is, what will drive content beyond the first circle? That's what everyone wants to know, right? What's the what? Okay, I have the attention of my first audience, so that's circle number 2. I have their attention. Now what? What do I do? You've got to be relevant. What's hot, what's not? Get with it. Fast, 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 fast. That's what happened with the Oreo case study, right? It was just that they were right in the moment. And people wanted to share that because they wanted to be of the moment. You don't want to be the person that shares something and have someone say, oh, that was 2 days ago. Oh, yeah, I've already seen that. Oh, you're completely irrelevant right now. Right? So the thing is, do something that's going to make me look cool. It's going to make me seem nice, smart, funny, altruistic, defines who I am, helps me tell my story, give me something to amplify, add to my cultural currency. The other thing is, pass the reward. Share in the wealth. I got something, so you should get something too. It doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be a coupon or a deal. It could be something that made my day. It could be something that makes me feel more informed. It's this idea of, I wanted to share this with you because I thought you may be interested in it. I have friends who are actors, and I'm always sharing things with them. Oh, by the way, there's an audition in your town. I don't know if you know that. And it makes it's a win-win situation. So give me something that's going to allow me to pass the reward. Now, how do you measure it? This is great and all, and this is awesome when you get that money shot of brand X gave me Y to make me look cool with my friends. But how do you really measure that? One is just really ensure that it can travel cross-platform. If you've gotten something that was started on Facebook and then ended up on Reddit or BuzzFeed or someone picked it up, that's success. That's awesome. That's great. You broke that barrier. The meta audience is everywhere. They're beyond Facebook. They're beyond Twitter. They can live in different spaces. Publishing sites like BuzzFeed or Gawker. It could be a topic of discussion on Reddit. People still email, guys. They still email. So just don't, think that it could start on Facebook. I know I tend to email some of my audiences because they're not on Facebook, or, I know I'll get it to them faster in email than it will on Facebook. Instant Messenger, the comment section of an article or of a blog, review sites, Amazon, iTunes, these are all social sites. Even though Amazon's an online retailer, it's social in its nature because you can comment, you can like, you can provide feedback. And I'm listening to that, and I'm taking it in. So again, just because I don't know someone personally doesn't mean that I might not be that sort of level 3, right? That circle 3. I go to Amazon, I'm looking at a product, someone says, oh yeah, it's great, I would totally buy it. They're number 2, I've become number 3, and I'm gonna go review it, and now it's number 4. You see how it's like all the dots are connecting? So this is the really big piece of it, is to not create campaigns or content for a platform. Create the content for the audience and for their audience. Start with who are we trying to reach and what can we make that would really, really make them happy that they could then share with their audiences. Figure that piece out and then start thinking about where you're going to seed it. This is where you need to start. This is how you acquire new audiences. So instead of thinking, what do I do on Facebook and on Twitter, and you're checking the boxes, I call it, people are trying to check the boxes, is to realize is that even if you think that you're checking the boxes, if the content's good, it's going to happen organically. And then sometimes it's going to be in places that you didn't even realize they could be. So set the bar for success. Move beyond the like. So the idea is that there's more in behavior than just liking. I think a lot of people were measuring based on the amount of fans or followers you had. But then it's, asking yourself the questions, well, did they share? Did they comment? Did they like, love, or favorite what we've posted? So it's really about setting up expectations for success and adjusting your strategy each time, again and again. But I think the best thing to do is to really just get in the room with the stakeholders and agree what success means internally. Try not to, especially in this world of new technology, define success based on, sort of what the market number is. Because, data is very helpful. But sometimes you have to look beyond that. That money shot, how do you measure that money shot? You can't, right? There's no formula for it. So realize that even behavior change, i.e. I got people to start talking more positively about my brand. I got 16-year-olds interested in my brand when before it was only 65-year-olds. This can mean success, and this can be your goal. And this could be what you're really trying to get out of all of it. So, really have those sort of measures of success as well. It's really about that behavior change. What is that big thing that we're trying to get people to do and to change? I mean, the other challenge is as new technology is created, it doesn't always immediately come with analytics or data or back-end information. So how do you measure success on buying, right? Like, what does that mean? What are people's behaviors on those platforms that shows engagement and success, and then setting that up. So go back, have these conversations with your companies, with your colleagues, with your friends, with your followers. Really talk about the meta audience. Have a look at who your meta audience is. Think about it. Think about who you talk to on a regular basis, who you have recommendations with. It's everywhere. It's in this room. It's at your office. It's on the food blog that you frequently visit. It's on Open Table where you book reservations. It's the ticket site where you buy your sporting tickets. It's the person you have season ticket holders next to. Like, your meta audience is everywhere. And as an advertiser, as a brand, think about those opportunities. Think about it. Just have the conversation. And that's all I got for you guys.
We have any questions from the audience before I attack you, Jennifer, with questions? Oh, wait. Oh, Joe, thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe Mandisian with Media Post. Really interesting. So I have one question for you. Do you know, like, what proportion of the time and energy that the meta audience spends communicating is done with something other than social media? Because the sense of this was, I mean, in your own anecdote, you said you spoke to your mom, you didn't tweet her. So yeah. Do you have any research showing how much of their time it actually occupies? No,
but I think that'll be really interesting, right? I mean, if you just think of yourself as an individual and you think about how many touch points that you have that is your meta audience, think about trying to measure it just for yourself. I mean, that's really intense. Like, think about everywhere that you touch online and where you're talking or you're recommending or you're providing back-end data where they're retargeting to you. I mean, it's everywhere. That's very hefty. But I think that, it's something we should keep an eye on. We should realize and, to start to see where we can measure those trends. There are, statistics out there where people talk about, how they share, how they refer. It's like, oh, how often do you refer a brand on social? How often do you email? But, with all this, the growth of what you can do online and in the digital space, it's just that the way in which you can connect with people is just getting bigger and bigger. But if you ever find stats, let me know, because I'd be interested to know. So, yeah, unless anyone's heard of anything. But
any other questions? Okay, I think we'll, so thank you, Jennifer. Yep. I was joking with, I think, John Mitchell on the catamaran ride that most of you missed, that my parents still, and I think his still send us newspaper clips in envelopes. And you're just kind of like, well, whatever, it's sharing. It's just not very digital. So you guys can start coming up. Our next panel deals with an issue that I'm sure that all of the marketers in the room wrestle with is how to staff this social thing. I think that the big challenge that I would see as an outside observer is that this crosses so many different components of communications. Ranging from customer service, if you have a social-facing customer service strategy, which not everybody does, to marketing, to PR, and so forth. And then there's all the kind of analytics, components, and on and on and on. So I think this is a really good session to kind of start to talk about how you staff for social. Our moderator is Carrie Surek, and she is the Chief Strategy Officer of Kinetic. She's moderated for us numerous times before, so I'm sure you'll do a great job. And before this, she was at Mindshare for quite a while. And I'll just give it over to you, Carrie, so please take it away.
Okay, this time I'm going to remember to use the microphone because I always forget. We're just going to start off with really quick introductions, and I'm also going to have everyone tell you how big their teams are. We have a really nice cross-section between agency, vendor, and brand, so you should get a really good cut through and hopefully be able to take away some stuff. I'm going to try to stay as silent as possible because that's what I'm supposed to do. So go ahead, just go down the line and take 2.5 seconds to introduce yourself and take 5 or 6 seconds about your team.
Okay, that's 8. No. My name is Ranveer Gujral. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Shoot. And we, so our team actually in total is 20 people, and our entire marketing department is 2. And so we are just building our team, our marketing team, which is all social, as we speak.
I'm Tony Jones from U-Haul International, and I am the social media manager. And we have had a very exciting year, going from 1 team member to 7 as of Monday. So I've definitely got some experience in this topic in the last couple of months.
Hi, Vic Thuria. I'm the managing partner of the digital investment group at Mediacom. The team's roughly about 8 right now. It's just in the U.S. and about another dozen globally, and experienced significant growth in the past, I'd say, 3 years.
Jeffrey Schenk, Chief Revenue Officer at Ampush, a Facebook PMD. Been joining the company about 3 months ago. We're growing from 38 when I joined to 54 today, so fast growth within 3 months of a current company. And relevant for this panel, just left my last company, which was Kenshu, which took it from myself and one other to about 135 in the course of 4 years, so some experience there.
Okay, so I think we'll just start out by kind of taking a look at what it is that you look for when you're trying to hire someone. Let's take, for example, let's go small and then move bigger. So for smaller players who have smaller teams, how do you make that decision when you know that your current resource base is too small to handle what you're doing? How do you decide what it is that you're going to put in place first? Because right now, social has so many different avenues you can go down, and I know that it's all situational, but generally speaking, you like to make a really good first decision or initial decision. So what is one of the top things that you have to find when you look for people?
So I actually think the topic of whether to hire internally or externally is actually really important, and I think Tony probably has a pretty good perspective on that. But for us, we were actually too small to hire internally, and we needed to look for outside resources. And so what we really, really cared about was we needed to find someone who was going to be the voice of the company. And for us, it was the first voice of the company. And we also work with social teams at a lot of our customers. It's very interesting because you're finding someone that's trying to capture that sort of spirit and voice, and it's hard to do when you don't have a lot of internal knowledge, or you haven't had the past of kind of growing up in the business and perhaps serving different roles. And so I actually think it's extraordinarily hard to do. And I would say, and we should probably dive into this a little bit further later, but I think a lot of people lean on agencies at first. And those agencies could be, they're at arm's length, they could be in a different place, and I think I would say that's probably a mistake, but something's better than nothing. So for us, it was very much finding the voice. It was finding people who were good writers, who were witty and talented. And then, it was funny. We were really looking for people like English majors, actually, because I was like, look, I can't teach someone how to write, but I can teach someone how to tweet. And then, they sort of came in, learned our business. They spend all of their time on sales calls, on marketing calls, on product calls, and are doing that. Been doing that for months and months and months. And we think that's how we sort of inculcated the knowledge into the new people on the team.
And I guess what I would say for that is there's two things that I looked for when I was hiring team members this year. Is I always tried to go internal. U-Haul is been around for 75 years, and we have a very deep-rooted culture, and it's important to us that we represent that online. So for us, we wanted someone who was really passionate about U-Haul and also passionate about technology, even if they didn't know social media that well, because again, we could teach that. They have to have good writing skills, and they have to be passionate about U-Haul and our customer, because we're very customer focused on social media. That's where we put most of our efforts at this point. So that is very hard to find externally, and I can't even imagine, I've been with U-Haul for 7 years, I can't imagine having someone like an agency understand our brand at all. It's just not possible. I mean, I'm a rookie at U-Haul. Most people who I work with have been there for 25, 30 years. So I just can't imagine having someone that hasn't sat in our seat and spent time with our customers representing our brand online. So for me, it's definitely about the customer and about understanding our brand.
So I come from a slightly different perspective, being part of Group M, which is the largest media bar in the world. Outside the obvious sort of skill set around empathy and excellent interpersonal skills and communication skills, to us it really comes down to sort of, it's the old in-house versus outsource. And then, again, having sort of global clients who we manage media for, it really comes down to what the overall goals are. So for us, it's taking a holistic approach at our portfolio, broad portfolio of clients, and again, figuring out which are the ones, for example, if we had U-Haul, for example, who has a strong in-house team, and we have other clients that don't have a strong in-house team, right? So for us, it's really figuring out what is the right balance of a social team that we need to house within, say, MediaCom, for example. Then also at the same time, being part of Group M and WPP, we have a very strong sort of social Group M team called M80. So I think our focus has always been, coming from the agency side, to be lean and mean. So for us, the initial focus has been on hiring someone who's senior, because the focus, again, is really on strategy, right? So for us, because social pretty much informs everything you do at the end of the day, across all media channels, right? So for us, it's having someone who's senior enough who can have those communications, relationships with serious comms planning, account directors, as well as clients. And then as far as the actual execution is concerned, that's where we would tend to sort of work with either sister agencies or, again, depending on the KPIs for different clients, we might as well work with a select series of social marketing firms as well. So that's sort of how we approach the overall hiring versus outsourcing and the overall skill set that we look for.
Can I just interrupt really quickly? That brings up a good point, is you've all kind of mentioned, I know you have tons to say, so there'll be plenty of time. How do you choose between going strategic or going executional if you have a very limited number? It's something I'd like to make sure we try to get to, because it can be very easy to pick up people who can tweet or to write, easy in relative terms, but then if you're looking at something from an overall strategic perspective, which is a better choice? If you can only choose one, what are you going to choose?
I think for us, it would have to be, again, strategic, because, as I said earlier, right, it's almost, you have to take the holistic view if the social informs everything. So depending on how fast the clients want the campaigns out of the gate, it's easy to work with, you either outsource the execution part, just because there are sort of agencies out there, such as Ampush, for example, that have a very talented skill set in terms of the programmers, the execution folks, the analytics and reporting, which we can get and eventually take that in-house. But it's really important to own strategy from the get-go, because otherwise you sort of reverse engineering, if you sort of go out the gate with execution, it's much harder to sort of go back and figure out, now I need to figure out the strategy. I've already gone out into the marketplace and there already is a certain perception of me. So you can be very careful of sort of how you approach that, just from our perspective.
I've just thrown that I agree, and I think having gone from very small footprints to larger, when you're kind of, I think your original first question was around the size of a team starting off. It's completely agree with what's been said around need to be able to walk and talk the brand. It's going for the strategic core, and I think getting the core right, or someone that matches up with the DNA of the company along with the core values of the company. If you don't get that right when you're a small footprint, it's just as a cancer that'll continue to grow over time. One of the things that I had a unique opportunity to work in the last 4.5 years out of the Sequoia Capital offices, and getting to sit around those guys and listen to them educate a lot of entrepreneurs that were building out companies. And I gave them a scenario once. I had a challenge with my last company, which was, you have two options. You have the option of, can I just go get a butt in a seat and capture revenue that's in front of me right now, and if I have a head count, I could go get it? Or do I not take that and really invest my time and only find that A player that's going to meet the criteria of how I want to build out the company? And they said, it's an easy one. Forget the revenue. You build that cancer, it'll never go away. The B will hire the C will hire the D, and you're done. So I think getting that strategic person that meets the core values and starting off with that core strategy first and then going into the tactical second is a good way of building out a business.
Do you all agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, as a general rule in business, you can't execute successfully without strategy. That doesn't apply just to social media. That's really just any team. So absolutely, you have to have a strategy in place and then execute upon it. Otherwise, you have no idea whether you've met your goals. So otherwise, you're just executing something well, but you don't even know if you're going in the right direction.
Yep. And I think the way that social has evolved, we've tended to, at the beginning, put in very executional people at the front end because this quote-unquote channel was so young at that point, so you had to kind of hit the ground. And then we worked ourselves into strategy. That actually leads me to ask, we notice a lot of times that the people who are most excited and most engaged from a social resource perspective are younger. They've grown up with technology, they're very comfortable being vocal, and if they're anything like my daughter, will not shut up. So it's good to have people who are excited. And then you have the old school people who have kind of grown up through the industry or come to social through other means. Do you think about when you're hiring people or when you're, say, moving people around in a team, how you're going to play the younger mindset with the older mindset? Because they're two completely different things, and a lot of times they don't actually mesh very well. So how do you handle those kinds of situations? And the second part of that question is, again, we're going to go back to, it's kind of an A/B test. Who do you choose? If you've got someone in front of you and they're two, they can both work, one of them is younger who might have less experience and one of them is older who might not be open to newer things. How do you make that choice? Because I find that's been one of the most difficult pieces, at least for me, is to try to decide. We don't have to go in line. You can just jump in whenever.
Yeah, for U-Haul, interestingly enough, I come from a process development and project management background, so I'm actually the older one on the team. But that makes it not too challenging because I'm also fairly young in the organization. I think where we struggle is not, the enthusiasm that we have from our younger team members that come on board is they love social media, they have tons of ideas. That's not a challenge on our team. Where that becomes the challenge is when they have to pitch that to our program managers who aren't into technology. They don't want to deal with social media. We're a bother. So that's where that youth can really be challenging. But the one thing that our organization does love is they love people who are enthusiastic and understand the customer. So again, it comes back to teaching them about our culture and then having them approach every situation that comes from we're here to help the customer standpoint, and that really can break through a lot of barriers with our more senior level individuals and then the people who've have long tenure with U-Haul that aren't ready to embrace social media.
I think, well, in the hiring process, we're certainly careful not to use words like younger, older, and age.
Well, true. I lived in Asia for so long, and there aren't those constraints about what questions you can ask in interviews like there are here.
So, but, you know, obviously there are substitutes like experience. But, you know, I think it's... So Jen McCraven runs the social group at Ogilvy, so I had been preparing for this panel, chatted with a few of our partners and clients, and you know, one of the things that she said recently is that you can't sort of social media is not just for the intern anymore, right? So that's both. You know, I don't think that's an age issue at all. I think it's just a level of importance, and so you know, you need to strike a balance between people who know the company, certainly, but you know, you can't. Bobby Bowden used to say, he's a college football coach for those who are fans in the audience, you can't teach speed. So you can't sort of. It's very hard to teach the enthusiasm, the kind of the natural ability that a lot of people will have, and perhaps if they are younger or have less experience, how adept they may be within the social realm, and those may be the people that you want to tap internally to come, you know, lead your team. I would imagine it's not surprising that you were chosen. You said you were the elder statesman on the team, but I can't imagine you are very old. So, you know, relative to the people who've been at U-Haul for 25 or 30 years. So I think that's kind of a testament to the decisions that you have to make. But I would say between, you know, I don't think there's any such thing as a decision between older and younger. I think it's a matter of finding the fit, and that's, again, it's a difficult balance.
So for us, it's really, I mean, not as much of an issue because, again, being in media, everyone's young. So, you know, most media players, I mean, they're all in their 20s, right? So the focus really has always been on the right skill set, as folks in this panel have already pointed out to. And I think it's sort of easier for us because we've always said it's about, you know, strategy first, and then based off strategy, making sure you have the right KPIs, the right benchmarks. So these are decisions that are usually made from a strategic level, right? And then eventually the execution comes down to it. So sure, if folks are younger and passionate and, you know, want to sort of tweet all day or tumble all day, or, you know, that's fine, or stumble. I think our goal is to really channel sort of that passion, right? And make sure it's all working towards the end goal, which is delivering on our client KPIs. So given sort of, I think, our current focus on strategy and sort of analytics driving the entire process, young versus old really has not been an issue for us for the most part.
So I go back to your question around, I have two options. the young, energetic sponge, or the elderly statesman who's got history and relationships and not willing to change. And I'd say, give me a third option. You know, I need both, but I think building it out, the answer is you need both. The young, hungry, energetic person.
That's not helping them make a decision, though.
Well, I like options. I like, you know, don't put me in a box. So I think, you know, looking at the past company and present company, it's finding extremely talented, bright, young, shining stars, and then being able to mold them, teach them, and train them. But at the same time, I'm saying you need to find those folks and build out from. You also need some of those folks who can train and teach. And it's not saying that one's always going to be the teacher and the other is going to be the person learning like you'd expect. But I think there's a balance between both that need to be in place.
Vic brought up a good point earlier on about the fact that social really isn't a channel, that it's kind of woven into everything we do now. And that makes me wonder how you've all approached making sure that your social teams are actually integrated with the rest of your teams. I know from my side of the house, from the agency side, sometimes it's very difficult because you have people who are in their boxes and their particular places, and there's not a lot of cross-communication. In smaller companies, you don't have that luxury. You have to all work together because it's kind of do what you need to get done. But how do you get your social teams and the rest of your teams to actually look toward, you know, how does paid attach to owned, attach to earned, and how do you make sure that all those connection points are made so that when you do have a really good team, they're able to talk to everybody else and get stuff done for the client or yourself?
For us at U-Haul, one thing that's going to shock everybody here, we don't actually do any paid social media. So us, it's all about earned and owned. But as far as getting ourselves integrated with the rest of the corporate organization, that's definitely a bit of a challenge because, like I said before, people aren't really engaged in social media at U-Haul in terms of our program managers. But what we do is we just show up. So a lot of people think that social is a great work from home position, but for us, it's not. You have to be in the office, and that's so important because we need to have a presence in the organization. And we'll try to give someone a call or send them an email and ask them to bring some ideas to the table or help us with a question that a customer has. And usually we get ignored, so then we just go to their office and show up. So that's really been our strategy to get involved with the team is, once we have those relationships, then it's a little bit easier. Next time we show up, they know, okay, well, if I just, give them what they need, then I'll be done with them in 5 or 10 minutes versus, having to hear from them every, 5 seconds via email and phone. So really for us, it's been, just getting ourselves out there, making them know that we're not going away, we're going to be here, social's here, and then also sharing with them some of the really positive experiences that we get on social media about their program. That's very helpful for us. But, like I said, the paid we don't use, but earned has a big impact in our organization, especially in the field. They like to hear what our customers are saying and how they're sharing their experiences about moving and storage in our organization.
The point you made about proximity is actually a really good one. Is Andrew from T-Mobile? Where are you? You here, Andrew? So we chatted. We were chatting briefly last night. So he for them, and they're kind of revamping their social team. But he's like, we need our community manager to be within choking distance, as he put it. And so I think that's exactly right. If social, at least those staffers are not sort of embedded within the team or pushed down to the way you already do marketing globally, if it's sort of, from some sort of distant central location, then I think you're not really going to affect change, which is really what you're trying to do, right? A new way of interacting with customers at all levels. And then you're not going to have the integration of, you do a paid campaign and then, the social team is on top of it, collecting all of the earned media, responding to it, pushing out an Oreo ad in the Super Bowl, and all of that stuff, right? People literally have to be in the same room.
It's interesting you say that. Talk about Super Bowl because we had actually. That's exactly right in terms of integrating social in all aspects, all fibers of sort of planning and strategy, and sort of we had the exact actually great experience with 2 of our clients for both Volkswagen and Audi, which actually were very, very opportunistic when it came out to the blackout, right? I think for Audi it was bringing actually it was a great dig at since the Super Bowl was played at the Mercedes-Benz Dome, so they actually said bringing LED lights on the way, so because it was part of the Audi commercial. So again, very opportunistic, and then I think Volkswagen was all about just since the theme was be happy again, just relax, be happy. So again, the only reason why both of these clients of ours responded in real time, literally within minutes of the blackout, was because they had social team standing by. So this is something which is sort of part of the process. For any of these big, huge events, you literally have teams that are on standby and are looking for opportunities and are prepared depending on what goes down, right? So, and the only way this, again, works is if you are completely embracing social, not from an agency perspective, but more importantly from a client perspective, and really working hand in hand, because without that, there is no way in a million years you could be opportunistic, because you can never plan out for those kind of opportunistic, random events like the blackout, right? So the only way that it works is if you truly, truly embrace social and sort of make sure your clients are bought in, right? So I think it was interesting what you talked earlier about U-Haul, the fact that you guys are newly paid. It was interesting because some of our clients were in the exact same situation a few years back, and the way we approached eventually trying to allocate dollars towards paid was coming up with, again, relevant measurable KPIs towards benchmarks and then saying, look, we actually deliver hard, tangible, measurable results against just based off sort of earned as well as owned. So if we add paid on top, and again, not a big budget, just a small budget, right, we can really amplify our results. So we have been actually very aggressive with some of our clients who are also in the same position of saying, I don't want to pay for social. We're like, no. You need to take a step back and figure out, based on your KPIs, how can this affect? And in certain cases, it was way more effective than even, say, a standard display campaign where, again, folks still spend millions of dollars towards. If you focus on social with a hard line towards KPI and measurable results, you'd be amazed at, what it can do for you just from allocating budgets. I was just curious if you guys would take that approach or not going forward.
Well, let me clarify. It's not that we don't pay for social media marketing. We don't pay for marketing. It's actually part of our brand policy. So for me to try to get advertising dollars for social media would be about as successful as me giving myself a root canal. So, at this point, I can't say that in a year we won't have a different strategy, but at this point I'm not really ready to fight that battle. So I definitely...
Taking that as a no.
That's a no, yes.
That's right. I'll answer your question from a different tact. And by the way, I'm upset now that I didn't see the blackout commercial of the mashup between Volkswagen, Audi, and Oreo being Be Happy, dunking with LEDs in the dark. Anyway, I think from a different tact of looking at it, with you were talking about wearing different hats and so on, is that from a technology and service provider perspective, it's aligning teams where they're wearing different hats, but literally positioning people and kind of to your saying being in the front of folks is putting the person who's the executioner right next to the builder and letting them learn from and share with each other in a real-time environment, because it's a very dynamic space we're in right now. And so I think that's something from a location standpoint of putting those two different groups in a place where they're becoming one.
This is a question more for Jeff and for Ranveer, because you guys sit in the vendor side of the space as opposed to either the brand or the agency. And how do you approach, you both have teams, but you also have your company, which is your team as well. How do you justify, from being on the vendor side, creating a social team when really, if you look at it from the basic thing, you're selling your stuff, and it's mostly to agencies or brands, so it's not a consumer base that you're trying to communicate to, really, because nobody really pays attention to any of us on the vendor side of the map in that respect. So how do you justify having a social team for what you guys do?
I'll take a first stab at it, and I think that just part of it is kind of mirroring what Tony had said earlier, is hiring people that understand the brand, understand the space, are passionate or driven, have the intelligence to be able to speak and talk and walk the walk of what they're going through on a day-to-day. Because I think, even in modern day, tech still doesn't buy from tech. People are buying from people, and they're building those relationships where they're able to say, they understand me, they understand what I'm trying to accomplish, what our DNA, what our goals and so on are, and then from there that builds a relationship that eventually gets into talking about specific, in your case it doesn't apply because you're not buying, but for folks that are doing the buy, it's being able to then take it down the road and go into what you are actually doing that's a differentiator. But I think it starts off with that DNA that's in alignment with the folks that you're trying to sell to.
Yeah, I think for us it's, we've grown pretty quickly in the last couple of years without really any sort of outbound marketing, or really any marketing of any sort, and really without a lot of sales efforts. I think we happen to be in a good market at a good time, but so our belief is basically that if anybody is aware of us, that they're basically going to buy our software. And if you believe that, which may be a bit of a it's a pretty modest claim, then it's a matter of growing awareness, and we'd like to grow it in an organic way. So I think we, like many other B2B vendors, and really vendors in general, we're striving for thought leadership in our market, right? So we power. Basically, we harness visual content and help you leverage it, right, in a number of ways. So for us, we talk a lot about the visual revolution, right? So in all of our social media, all of our sort of own media, the blog posts, the things we put out there, any of the press release, the earned, we're always talking about the visual revolution. And we're always talking about our company powering the visual revolution. And really having the social staffers amplify that message, create the content to put that out there, it's no different, really, I think, than any brand that is trying to position themselves around a topic and own it. And we have to follow, we have to build a team the exact same way. We have to market the exact same way. We pay for the tools that, organizations a lot larger than us, also pay for. And it's really the same thing, right? I mean, you happen to be working, our clients tend to be social teams at big brands and agencies and publishers. But at the same time, we have our own, we have to sort of eat our own medicine or eat our own dog food, and build the exact same competency.
So do you find, again, this is for the two of you, do you find that your efforts in social, from a company perspective, have paid off in terms of you booking more business and seeing that? Or is it just kind of, okay, they know we're here, but they haven't said maybe, you did something really super cool and that's why we called you instead of these other guys?
I think for us, I mean, the business tends to be when people see executions and they like right-click and inspect element and find our name in the code somewhere, and then they call us. That's literally how we get most of our business. But look, to own, to be a thought leader in a space, especially a nascent market, of something that's very emerging, it takes time, and we understand that. So for us, it's going to be an investment that has a 12 to 18 month time horizon as opposed to a 1 month or 3 month time horizon, which is the vast majority of everything we do, right? So it's really hard yet for us to be able to measure thought leadership, but measurement is an entirely different topic that I think we should dig into. But
yeah, I'd agree with everything you're saying, and I think historically in the present company, I've never been a big fan of buying like competitor terms or buying the terms and doing my own ad campaigns around. I've been more of a fan of produce and do amazing things for your clients and let them be your evangelists, let them be your advocates, let them be the referral network, and so on. So it's I agree with you. You're doing all the same things of marketing your company and going out. I look at the marketing more from the conferences and thought leadership and things of that nature than the more competitive way of doing it, and really focusing on the quality of the product, the quality of the output.
We probably have time for one more question before opening it up to questions from the audience. And I kind of want to have the good, the bad, and the ugly in a lot of ways. So if we can just go down the line, give me a funny story about your best hire or your worst hire, or who is that one resource you would avoid like the plague, and who is it that you would give your right arm for? You can choose any of those.
Well, I think my left arm, at least, would be an analyst to measure. And so I think actually one of the secrets to, I think, building a social team at a larger organization, this is just from our, talking to our customers, is that marketing, the vast majority of the marketing that people do is actually measured, right? People are looking for, whether it's sales lift or everything they do digitally, and it's really easy to measure, whereas a lot of social efforts, earned media efforts are a little bit more difficult to measure. I think that you should have an analyst on staff that is constantly looking at the metrics, invest in the tools, because that will get you more budget. That will get you more headcount, because you'll be able to make a case every quarter, every year of look at how effective we've been, look at the impact it's had on the business. And I think that's a little bit of the secret sauce in terms of like playing the politics within a larger organization, being able to really grow your social team, because you can always measure the ROI.
I definitely agree. Analytics is extremely important, and as someone who comes from, Six Sigma and project management, that's definitely my number one priority. But as far as social media, I don't think that you're always going to get a team member that's well-rounded in all of those functions, and so as long as you have a team in place that can do analytics for you, like U-Haul does, then I think you can go into the other aspects of social media, like good community managers, customer service, great writers. As far as, I haven't had a bad hire yet, and I'm pretty sure my team is probably following this because U-Haul's been mentioned several times. So definitely every one of my team members has been a fantastic hire. If anybody wants to go ahead and tweet that. Go ahead and tag at U-Haul.
Be careful. They might even go ahead and try and poach them, right? So be careful. Countering them with a lot more money just to keep them happy, right?
That's right.
Double that sword. I think for us, it's, again, being on the agency side, right? I mean, there's no dearth of good people. But sort of, you'd be very wary, because I think just a few months back, trying to hire within our team, and the focus was sort of, again, investment in social. And this person would just not stop dropping buzzwords, which is ridiculous. I mean, at some point, like, yes, I know you're trying to impress me with your knowledge, but it's not really about by simply dropping buzzwords left and right. It's more about your approach and your understanding, because, as I said earlier, for us, it's all about, it starts with strategy, and the underlying thread is data, right, with a focus on ROI. So for us, it's really someone who gets that. That's way more important than, you may only know 2 of the 20 buzzwords, that are sort of around right now, but I don't really care. To me, it's more about the approach and the fundamental understanding that this is a client-driven business where the focus at the end of the day is on efficacy and ROI. And if you get that, it's a lot easier to convince me as opposed to just dropping, I'm not going to drop any of the buzzwords, though.
So no one gave a really bad horror story, so I guess that
I'm
leads me to be the
bummed.
last
I
one.
wanted something really
I'd
funky.
say on the positive side, I think it's you invest your time up front, in yourself personally joining a company to interview and spend the time to make sure that you're getting the right people. I mean, you have a stellar, C-level team that you're coming into. You've got an amazing core company that you're coming into. You invest your time. I think people, if they spend as much time investing and looking at the company they're going to go work for as they did the next cell phone that they're going to buy, they would actually have a better outcome and not be so frustrated. I think you then turn around and you use that same approach to the folks that you're hiring. You really take the time to go through and find the right person for the right job. And if it's not it, don't settle. Just keep on pushing. I guess on the horror story side, this would take me back to the late 90s. I was working at a company where during the interview, there was a banging noise on the window behind me. And the woman started crying and told me, lock the door and run for your life. I said, what the hell's going on? She said, my ex-husband's going to kill me and anyone talking to me. And I said, well, I think the interview's over. I am going to lock the door. I'll call the police as well. It's been nice. Thank you. We'll talk. I'll make sure we follow up later. So that's my one horror story.
I actually think that's a great way to have rounded this up. So, do we want to open to questions?
Yeah. Do we have questions? Yes. Okay. Nathaniel has one. Meanwhile, Vic, I want you to tell us your best and worst buzzword. Anyway, okay, here to Nathaniel.
Best and worst buzzword.
I think holistic wins. Like if we all had a buck for any time anybody said holistic.
Zuckerberg.